Besides amateur radio, there are other things that I like to do poorly as well. And one of them happens to be vinyl cutting. Now, I've been cutting vinyl for at least 7 years now, and I've had a really good time doing it. I utilized the Silhouette Cameo 3, which by now is a very inexpensive vinyl cutter. I think you could find them online used for $65 or $70 US. Fairly decent deal. And today I want to show you the process that I use when I cut vinyl for stickers. Of course, using a Silhouette, you could do things like cut cardstock, and you can cut vinyl for t-shirts. It's called heat transfer vinyl. So there are a lot of different ways I can go, but today I'm just going to show you the process that I use for cutting vinyl stickers. And the vinyl stickers or decals that I cut, they're ultraviolet protection. They're waterproof. They'll withstand a hurricane. They're durable. And I tell you all this because well, maybe you're interested in making your own vinyl stickers. Maybe you're interested in just purchasing vinyl stickers, which are on my Etsy shop. Or maybe you're looking for that perfect gift for a significant other, a loved one, a relative, a child, whoever it might be. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe you want to get him custom stickers that say, "Go Pound Sands." You know, you could do that with a vinyl cutter. And that's where we're going to get started with today's episode. What do I do to cut vinyl start to finish? I hope you enjoy it. Obviously, there's a lot of directions that we can go to when we're talking about cutting vinyl. So I will give you an example today where I'm going to make custom ham radio callsign decals on a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of Oracle 651. Now, the reason, again, I choose Oracle 651 is kind of what I just mentioned, and that's the amazing properties that it has. Today, the winner of these decals, he requested the color red, which I think is great. And Oracle 651 comes in a lot of different colors. It doesn't really necessarily matter what commercial vinyl cutter you use. You're going to also need to use a software in order to essentially design the shapes and the objects that you want to cut out on vinyl. And basically, it's like a CNC. We'll use this software to design something and send it to the computer. A good point to make out is most every commercially available vinyl cutter these days does have either a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth capability. And for my scenario today, I'll be utilizing USB because my Bluetooth has died on the Silhouette Cameo. But again, it's like 7 years old. I expect that to happen, and I'm just glad that I can continue to use it via USB. Eventually, I'm going to have to replace it. But let's go ahead and get into the Silhouette Cameo software. They have their own you know the word I'm looking for. They have their own software. And here it is. So what you might see now is I already have custom call signs for somebody else that I've designed in the past. And my goal is to fill up a whole sheet 12 by 12 of call signs for Jeff, who won his own kind of set of stickers. So first thing I got to do is I got to get his call sign, and it's going to be longer than this one. So that's the thing about having custom call sign stickers is if I fill up a sheet, there might be different number of decals based upon how long or short a name is or a design is or a call sign is. And today's call sign, Jeff's call sign, is K0DJV. Now, that's going to be lowercase, and I don't want to do that, so I'll go through here real quick, and I'll make everything capital. Now we see that I got K0JD on here, and what I'm doing with these boxes, now these boxes, you might be wondering why I do these. When I end up peeling away some of this Oracle 651 after the cutting occurs, I'm basically protecting what's inside of it, and then I'll peel the square box out later to reveal only the call sign. And this is going to make sense in just a second, so let me go ahead and do this. As I go through some of the software, what I'll do is I want to rearrange some of these squared boxes and the call sign inside, or the object inside. And that's because I want to leave enough space in between all the boxes so that when I finally do take away the boxes and cut, I have enough room to cut around the call sign without potentially damaging the actual call sign or the image logo itself. And of course, the nice thing about this is I can copy using Control-C and I can paste, and then all of a sudden all I have to do is drag the new call sign to where I think it's going to line up very nice. Again, I could have a nice cut on one 12-inch piece of paper all the way down without going over the call sign. Whereas if I had the call sign right here, I could only cut down a quarter of the way or a third of the way on the sheet itself. So keep that in mind. I now have a basic layout of what I think this is going to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug everything in as far as my vinyl cutter goes to the computer, and then I need to insert a piece of this Oracle 651 paper. Now, Oracle 651 is kind of flimsy, so we need something to hold it on to, rather for it to grip onto, and for that I use the Cricut backing here. It's got a little bit semi-sticky of a side, so the vinyl sticks onto it, and then the vinyl cutter could hold onto it as it goes back and forth and it cuts the vinyl. Let me show you that process right now. I would like to point out that because this is sticky, if you have, I don't know, a dog, yeah, dog hair is going to get everywhere, and that's why I usually keep this on top, which this just came with the actual products, and I got it from my Hobby Lobby or Michael's. So here we are with the Oracle 651, and what I found is my local Michael's doesn't necessarily always have every color of Oracle 651 in stock. I went over to Amazon.com and I found these, and they are way cheaper than Michael's. One of the problems I've discovered with them though is they're not always 12 inches by 12 inches. Sometimes I get one that's 10 inches by 12 inches, or they're cut a little bit short for some weird reason. What we're gonna do is we're gonna line this up so it's nice and straight with the corners of our measuring area. You can see here it starts to taper off a little bit, and I don't want that. By the way, this is what the backing of the paper looks like, and you can see it's relatively loose. And now that I have that on there, and I believe it's fairly straight, it might be just a skosh off, I basically just kind of make sure that all the Oracle 651 is flat on there, and we'll bring it over to the vinyl cutter now. After I get the vinyl loaded up, there's a line on the left-hand side. I'm just making sure I'm flush on that line, and I'm gonna hit load. And now the magic happens. We go to the vinyl cutter software and we hit cut. At the top of this software, we do see an option here that says send. I may have told you cut, but when I click send, it not only highlights everything that is gonna cut, you can see that partially on the left-hand side, but then on the right-hand side, we have all these options. And there's a bunch of predefined options. If you're trying to do cardstock, you could do cardstock. Copy paper, you can cut that. All the way down to heat transfer vinyl for making t-shirts. But today we're using vinyl glossy. And the action is we're gonna cut it using our auto blade. One of the things that I automatically noticed right here, and that's typically correct, would be the blade depth. It's set to 1 in the software, and my blade is not dull. But I'm gonna have to go ahead and I'm gonna set that blade to 7 because there is something wrong with my cutter. It's been, quite a few years now already. And cutting it to 7 for me will make sure that it cuts through the actual vinyl gloss, but doesn't cut through the backside of the vinyl. The backside of the vinyl. Now, I don't have to worry about the force. 10 is good. The speed being 5, it's gonna be a medium speed. And I'm only gonna do 1 pass. Now, you probably guessed it. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna hit send. What you're hearing is it trying to change the blade depth. It goes to 0, and then it adjusts from there until it hits that number we defined, that being 7. This process, depending on the detail of your vinyl, may take 5, 10, 12, 15 minutes. For us, this should be about 5 minutes. We'll see you then. Just like that, we are done. Go ahead and hit the unload button, and we're good to go. Bring this over here to the bench. But there is another thing I want to point out here. If you didn't hear that, that was very loud. So maybe consideration when you're purchasing, if you're purchasing a vinyl cutter for your wife, loved one, significant other, relative, would be something along the lines of, how loud is it? Again, that's been that loud since day one. One of the nice things about this though is, for example, the Silhouette Cameo 3 has storage in here. And within that storage, I could do things like put some of my tools that we're going to use for the next step. I've already done this once. You'll see what happened, all that good jazz, in just a few moments. But I do talk about, when I do this, that there's probably a good reason to have multiple sheets of paper. Anyway, what I'm doing right now is I'm peeling this off of this sticky surface standard grip. And it kind of leaves me with a rolled up piece of Oracle 651 paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start what they call weeding away some of this vinyl. Now I think you may be able to understand why I take this and I put it into square blocks on different kind of cuts or different letters, stuff that's not going to be together. Because if I was just to start pulling this without having any of these square blocks, sometimes when you get toward the middle and you're pulling, you're adding a lot more resistance, if you will. And that means that you're going to potentially and occasionally pull away some of the letters, which you don't want to do. So right now, what I'll do is I'm just going to pull away or weed away some of the larger letters. And that's another good point right there. You see, as I was pulling away, I noticed the K was wanting to go, so I just kind of turned it a little bit. There are tools you could use. We're going to get to that in just a second here because, well, there's like a dental pick, and the dental pick works well. Looks just like a dental pick, allows you to kind of weed off everything. But what I did is I went to Hobby Lobby, and one thing that I do like from Hobby Lobby, because their transfer tape isn't the greatest, is this 405 Basics toolkit. Comes with the scissors, a nice tool to push out all the air bubbles, and then this tool right here. And as you can see, it really is good at gripping kind of like, I don't know, vinyl. And I'm just going to use it and I'm going to pull it away. Now, I will caution you on this. This part's easy, right? Because all we're doing is we're removing the boxes, and you'll be able to tell if you didn't remove a box. I mean, it'll be red, completely red. But what's going to happen is when we get to this point where we're working only and solely on things like these little numbers and letters, I'm going to be weaning them in these fine details. And there's a possibility that if I'm not going in some kind of order, or maybe, just maybe, I end up missing something on the D. When I go to our next step, which is putting this all on transfer tape, that's where, hey, if I miss that, I don't think I'm going to get it back. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up pulling up all these square blocks, and I will bring you back in for some more weeding of the fine details. Well, maybe I'll talk to you a little bit more. What I wanted to mention, as I was telling you just to do it one way, what I wanted to mention was the reason I say have multiple pieces of paper. I didn't expect for my camera to fall from up here and fall straight down onto here while I was working on this, but sure as luck would have it, as I just finished this sheet and I was just putting on the transfer paper, well, here's some video for you. So I lost the transfer paper. I was extremely pissed off, and I lost that whole cut. And that's going to happen time to time. If you're doing this for business, you always have to have way many extra sheets. As you can see, my vinyl is actually pulling away nice and smooth. But if all of a sudden I was pulling this away and the letters were sticking with the vinyl, that means it didn't cut deep enough. And that is, again, why I changed my vinyl blade setting to a much higher depth, because I know from many years of using this that my blade depth for this vinyl is 7. But I also probably have something wrong with the cutter. This is something else you got to be on the lookout for. I just dropped this, and the odds of me recovering this are possible, but you're going to see now that the D comes up. So another really good reason to have extra vinyl, because now he's not KS0, J, weird, letter character. That's a mess up, and so I don't want to include this, right? I don't want a customer, or in this case a winner, to get a partially accurate call sign. But also, I would probably at this point have to cut out another call sign for this individual, because he's supposed to get a sheet. My mess up should never go to a customer, right? Now, I do have all the big, large blocks removed, and I'm going to start removing some of these very small, fine details like I did down here. And I'm going to start from the upper left-hand side, and I'm just going to, in the middle of the O, for example, I could see where it's cut. Here, let me show you with the D on a close-up. Oh, by the way, I put all my sticky stuff on my thumb, so it's not all over here. Because what sometimes could happen is as I'm going to pull this up, sometimes I'll drop it, and if this little sticky part of the decal that I'm removing gets stuck on the D, now I lost a whole nother letter. As you could see on that D, clearly you could see where it's been cut for me to remove on the internal. I'll bring you back in for the transfer tape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out 12 inches on here. And to do that, well, I could use this cool mat that I have, which is from Tech Tools. Also, I have a Fisker one under the vinyl cutter itself. They both work great. Shout out to Goodwill for me finding this, and shout out to Premier, the trimmer people, for making it. But this is 12 inches to the blade to the end of the trimmer or the cutter that I'm using here. So basically all I'll have to do is everything should line up pretty well. I'll tell you why this was at Goodwill in a second. But basically now I'm measuring out 12 inches and I know that there's a bunch of air bubbles here. Air bubbles on this transfer paper at this point are not a big deal. So I'm just going to say, oh yeah, these are great measuring tools. Here's 12 inches. And then I'm going to bring everything in line. Now, perhaps one of the reasons that this cutter was so cheap at Goodwill is when I cut it, there's a bend right here. So I'm going to get a slight angle on my actual transfer paper, but I'm just going to cut it. And yep, slight bend, no big deal. And hey, if you're watching this from my channel, Ham Radio Dude, thanks for watching. If you get your wife a vinyl plotter or vinyl cutter, that will allow you a free pass to go buy Ham Radio. Now, here it is. I have the 12-inch sheet, and basically I'm going to peel back the vinyl, or the clear vinyl transfer tape. And this is something that's pretty funny, because when I first started getting into this, and for a long time afterwards, I would actually save this paper, and then when I was done transferring everything, yeah, I would pull it off of that Oracle 651 and I would put it on here. But the fact is that's a stupid, unnecessary step, and I'm letting you know that because I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I made. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to find that place where I cut, because I know it's not an even line. It's up on top now. So now I should, in theory, have a fairly even line toward the bottom. Alternatively, this should be 12 by 12. So I may just bring it to the side. And now I know, because these are the pieces that were on the side, those are going to be completely straight. I'm pretty content with that for today's purpose. And I'm going to try to bring this down. And also, I know that you're probably thinking as you're watching this right now, damn, that's a crooked mat. Well, you're right. What I did is I lined up all my lines to my cutting mat. And on this piece of paper, you'll notice that my top, well, let's call it a margin or a border, is very thin. And there's a thicker margin toward the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a thicker margin toward the top now, away from me. And that means if I start here on this first full line we could see, I should be able to fit all of the decals on the same sheet while also making sure everything is aligned. And once I do that, I'm just going to drop it. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this 405 Basics kind of squeegee tool, and I'm just going to slowly run it away from me at an angle that's, I don't know, see, that's 90 degrees, that's 45 degrees. Let's call it a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to rotate 90 degrees on the vinyl, and I'm going to do the same thing now. Now also, not only is the client going to have their decals, but they're going to know that it's a quality kind of vinyl. And the big reveal, do we get air pockets? Does this look like garbage? Not really, it doesn't look too bad. And you can see now that the client should be able to line up their call signs, and they should, for the most part, be able to, boy, that was close down here. That's going to be okay though, but the client should then be able to transfer these to anything. All they're going to have to do is, I'm going to cut these, and all they have to do is they have to peel away their transfer tape and slap it onto something after cleaning. I'll show that to you in another episode. The only other thing I really need to do at this point is I need to start cutting this out. So I'll bring back this super dull bladed trimmer, people. And I'm just going to start to look for spots where I can cut all the way down. So, you know, you look at this piece of vinyl here, or this piece of transfer tape here that we have, and I know I can cut straight down all 12 inches right here. And I'm going to try to cut it as straight as possible, keeping in mind that I know that this blade is probably slightly bent. If you got problems where it's sticking like it is for me, you could actually just take a scissors, but guess what? In that same package where I got all that other stuff from 405 Basics came a decent little pair of scissors. I'm just going to cut that away. You know, and some people would be completely content at this point just sending it to the client. And I'm not completely happy with that crease. I don't think I would actually send this to a client. Let's see here. Look at that. Boom. And now I'm just going to find another opening, because what happened? when I did this and I cut that one section, I gave myself another opening right here. As far as maintenance goes to the Silhouette Cameo 3, I'm going to be straight up forward with you, and I don't do too much maintenance to it. I check the belt every now and then for tension, but that's been about the extent of the maintenance I've done on that. I guess that should probably tell you how decent of a product the Silhouette Cameo 3 is. And now we're at that part. We're on our final couple of cuts here, so boom, and don't want to mess this up. There is a thin gap between these two. And I think that you could see now why it's important to make sure that you have enough room as far as a gap goes, because that could get really nasty really quick, especially when you're on your last cut, right? So anyway, all I have to do now is I like to put these in order, box them up, we're good to go. Yeah, you know, that was kind of fun. I enjoyed this. There was no sponsorships involved, so don't think anything here I said was, oh, the company paid me to do it. And I have to point that out, right? But I really just enjoy cutting vinyl. It's one of I call myself sometimes dude of all trades, kind of like a jack of all trades. I know enough to make me dangerous in a little bit of everything. But now these stickers will go to a happy KS0JD, where he could slap it on a tumbler or on the back of his vehicle. And these things, like I mentioned, awesome and durable. So if you're considering getting one of these, a vinyl cutter, any of this material for a significant other, a loved one, and you have any questions, maybe you saw something I didn't mention, let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to try to help you out, and hope you have a good one. Take care.